hey guys. I asked a question on Instagram, what kind of instructional videos you guys wanted to see, and one of you got back with me with you wanted to see a scope mounting process, and I'm going to take it a step further and kind of go through the entire process from having a rifle, getting the rings, obviously leveling and torquing down your optic, but then I'm also going to go into what do you do after that before you go to the zero range. So some gear that we're going to need to have, you're going to have a torque wrench of some type. So this is a Wheeler torque wrench. Fix-It sticks are awesome. I love Fix-It sticks. I just couldn't find, I have my Fix-It sticks at Branded Rock Canyon. So you will need to have some type of torque wrench. This is the Wheeler Fat Boy or Fat wrench. Yeah, this one is not electronic. I picked up that one. I just wanted to test it out and see how well that worked. You're also going to need a scope level, right? So some type of leveling kit for your gun. It doesn't have to be expensive. As long as you have a level, it'll work. It's got to be a small one to be able to fit on the rails and stuff like that. So first things first, we don't have to have this in a vise. If we have it on a good set of bipods, it'll do the trick. We want to make sure it's not going to move after we start torquing things down. So I can mess with it and go, okay, that's not moving at all. This is a very steady platform. So what do I got to do first? Well, I've got to go ahead and apply my level to my gun. So I'll kind of walk you guys through that. I think this is like 70 bucks. I just bought it, so I should know, but I think it's around 70 bucks. So there's magnets on these, right? Which makes it nice for holding on. I'm gonna measure my rail first. So I'm gonna level my gun, and then once I get this level, I'll go in and I can apply this level to my barrel, take this off because my rings are gonna go here and they're gonna get in the way, obviously. All right, so that right there is pretty damn level. All right, so I just want to go ahead and match this up with it now and then tighten this down. So when looking at both of these, I can kind of back up and look down them. Yeah, those both look great. So now I can take this off, and when this gun isn't level, it's not a big deal anymore because this isn't gonna move, right? So anytime I need to level this gun out, I can just obviously put it back to level, which is right there. All right, so we've got the gun level. Next thing we gotta do is go ahead and pick the rings out, right? So right here we've got a Leupold Mark V. It's the Mark V 3.6 to 18 HD scope. It's got a 35 millimeter tube, right? So I need to get 35 millimeter rings. I went ahead and got the high rings for this one. You don't necessarily, getting high rings isn't necessarily better. If you have a suppressor that you have to shoot over, sometimes the high rings are necessary. All depends on your setup. So whenever I'm applying the actual rings to my gun, I know roughly that they'll go right around here for the first one. Right, I can just eyeball it. I can take my optic, I can kind of set it here, and I can kind of figure out, well, if I was to put this in the center, where can I get this one, right? So I'll look back here, and I'm eyeballing this too right now. I'm gonna get more precise here in a second, but I know that most of my optics line up right around here. So now, when setting this exactly, I want to go ahead and make sure that my eye relief is going to be set and is going to be good for this, right? So without actually losing your optic, making sure that you're holding on to it. And I haven't tightened anything down yet, right? So in case I do need to move something. So I'll look through my scope. I'll move it back, forward and backwards until I feel good about it. And right there, I feel pretty good. Throw these up top. So I'll take the top of this. So now I need to torque some things down. So with this torque wrench, for a system like this, for these type of rings, you can use about 65 inch-pounds. You can look up the manufacturer's recommended torque settings for these things, but I'm gonna flip this around so I can see what I'm working on. But you just go ahead and you just torque these suckers down, right? So I've got it set up right now for 65 inch-pounds. All right, so I've got my base torque down to 65 inch-pounds. Turn this back around now. So the next step is leveling the optic, right? With these types of rings, I like to make sure that the left and the right side is even when it comes to the spacing in between the left and the right side of where the rings meet, the tops and the bottoms. That's just as simply as not being ridiculous about it, but just as simply as kind of looking, coming over this side, and matching up the gap size. You don't have to be too crazy about it. So our scope is on the gun, the right distance, forward and backwards. We know that. So now we have to level the optic as far as cant left and right. We can take our scope level, place it on top of our turret. On almost all turrets, just about, you can place your scope level on top of that. If you can't, that makes life a little bit more difficult. You got to find a flat spot on the scope, but I've never personally run across a scope that I couldn't do that with. Level the gun, get it nice and square, nice and center. Okay, that's great. Now I can get this nice and square, nice and center. Now for this torque screw, we're looking at about 18 to 20 inch-pounds for this one up here. So I'll bring this down to 18 inch-pounds, or 20. I'm going to set mine at 20. This is where I'm still checking my gap sizes. Getting those all perfect. And then I'll torque one down. I'll go across. It doesn't really, honestly, I just do one crossover, crossover, crossover. Kind of like you're doing the lug nuts on a car, except you've only got 4. So I've got the first one. And how are we looking? So, yeah, it's looking good. All right. Check the spacing. Check level. Level's good. All right, so now I've got my optic forward and backwards on my gun where it needs to be, and then canted left and right where it needs to be. So an important thing that a lot of people do is they take their gun, they level it, or one of the things kind of people miss is they take their gun, they level it, and then they think, all right, time to go to the zero range and zero this bad boy. You got a couple things you got to do, honestly. You've got to set your ocular focus. So your reticle, you want to focus your reticle to your eye specifically. And all these, you know, optics that are worth anything, right? I'm not talking about Tascos. I don't know about those. I don't use Tascos. But the optics that are worth anything have an adjustable ocular lens. So back here, one of the things we're going to do for kind of focusing the reticle is we're going to take the gun, we're going to point it at a light colored background, and we're going to look through this gun. What we're going to do is we're going to move our ocular lens until everything comes into focus. So I'll take off any kind of glasses I have on. I'll zoom it into the highest power setting so I can really see that reticle. And I'll go back and forth until it looks perfect. All right, so once it's perfect, I'll go ahead and I'll mark it. So that's kind of the next step. So what I really like to do is I'll take either a marker and mark the actual ocular lens itself, or if you're using a scope cap, I just put a mark on the scope cap. Now, I like putting mine on a specific way. I like my scope cap, when it does flip open, to kind of flip down right to the side. I like to put my data, I like 250, 350, 450, 550, 650, I can put data on the inside of my scope, because I have 200 through 700 memorized, right? So I'll put the 50 meters or 50 yards in there, and then I can close that, and then I'll put it butt up, and I'll look and I'll go, okay, I need to mark this. And when I mark my my scope cap, if I can it left or right at any point in time, it's going to go ahead and you're going to be able to match it back up. So that's one of the really nice things about it. All right, so I've got the scope on the gun leveled, torqued down. I've got my ocular lens, my reticle focused. The next step would be, before I go to the range, I can always bore sight this. Old school method for bore sighting, and anybody can do this with just about any rifle. With an adjustable chassis, obviously it's nice. You can just move the buttstock up and out of the way. Take your bolt out, fold this back, open up your scope caps, and all you're going to do is put this on a surface where it's not going to move. You can use a rear bag, you can use a jacket, or you're squeezing it, you're holding it, but you're just eyeballing it. What you're eyeballing is you're looking through the scope, you're looking through the you're looking through the bore, and you're matching those up to get it good enough, right? You're just trying to be able to hit that piece of paper without shooting around, shooting multiple rounds, not knowing where you're hitting. You want to get this as close as humanly possible. So for this gun, I've already went ahead and done that. So what I do is I put the bore on the target. I look down the bore. I'm like, okay, that's right at the target, right at the center of the target. I look up at the optic and I go, that's high or low. And I'm gonna dial this wherever I need to, whichever direction, to where it comes up and marries up. After I do that, I can go ahead and float the turrets, put them back on, and then go to the zero range and make it precise from there. So that's pretty much a step-by-step, and if you guys follow these steps, it's not difficult to ever put a scope on a rifle. It's kind of hard to mess up as long as you follow these basic guidelines. And when it comes to gear, I won't get into it because a lot of it's personal preference, but I will say quality gear goes a long ways with not having to re-sight in your gun, without having to re-zero it with larger calibers and more recoil and setting it off. You want to have a good set of rings, you want to have a great optic, and that'll take care of that problem right there. That's pretty much it, guys. Hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for asking questions like this. I love just, giving a little bit of information that I have and kind of applying it, and there's a million ways to do this, so if this isn't how you do it, no big deal, but this will definitely get the job done, and there's more precise ways to do everything. So some of the things sitting it out here on a table, right? Oh, it's not the most precise, but it works for me and for what I'm doing. So any other questions you guys got, shoot me a message, let me know, and I'll answer to the best of my ability. Thanks, guys.